My name is Redwing Keyssar, and I am a nurse at the MeriCenter for Education and Palliative Care at UCSF Mount Zion. Here at UCSF, we want to make sure that you have a voice in your health care and that you get the care that is right for you. Advanced care planning is an important way to ensure that we honor your wishes for health care. Part of advanced care planning is creating a document called an Advance Directive for Healthcare. What is an Advance Directive? An Advance Directive for Healthcare is a legal document that allows you to state your wishes about what you would or would not want as a procedure or an intervention in terms of healthcare at a time in your life when you would not be able to speak for yourself. It also allows you to name one or two decision makers who could make decisions for you if you were not able to. Why do I need an advance directive? Everyone who is an adult in our country, that is over 18, benefits from having an advance directive for health care. None of us ever knows when a crisis might happen, when you might end up in an emergency room or a hospital, unable to speak for yourself. It can happen from an accident, it can happen from a sudden medical event. When we put our wishes in writing and have conversations with our loved ones about what's important to us, then our wishes can much more likely be followed by the healthcare team. What is the difference between an advance directive for healthcare, a power of attorney for healthcare, a power of attorney in general, a living will, and a POLST form? Part of what makes these decisions about advanced care planning complicated is that we have many documents with different names that are all actually the same legal document, and it gets very confusing for people. So an advance directive for healthcare is the same thing as a power of attorney for healthcare. Some people call it a durable power of attorney for healthcare. These are all the same document. There are many, many different forms. There used to be a form called a living will. A living will was also a document that states your wishes for the kind of care you want in a medical situation where you can't speak for yourself. The living will was a document before the mid-1990s that allowed you to state your wishes but did not allow you to name someone else to speak for you. In the late 1990s, the power of attorney for healthcare went into law in California that allows you to name one or two agents or decision makers to make decisions for you if you are not able to. The big thing that people need to understand is that as long as you can speak for yourself and have the capacity to make medical decisions, you are always the decision maker. The only time that this document goes into action is when you cannot speak for yourself for whatever reason, and then your agents or decision makers have the legal ability to speak for you. Who is the best person to choose as my agent? The best person to choose for your agent or your decision maker in your power of attorney for healthcare is really the person who knows you best, who you've been able to have a very in-depth conversation with about what your wishes might or might not be if you were in a healthcare situation where you could not speak for yourself. For many people, the assumption that the best person to be their agent is their spouse, their partner, their oldest child. That's kind of the go-to. What I always ask people to consider is that the person who's going to be making these decisions for you is really your advocate. They may have to show up at a hospital, have difficult conversations with a healthcare team, and they really need to be able to understand that their job is to express your wishes, not to do what they think is best, but to express your wishes because they've had a conversation with you about what is important to you. The role of your agent is also to make sure that the healthcare team is following your wishes both up until the end of your life, and they can also make decisions about what happens to you after you die in terms of if your wish is for cremation or for burial or what you have decided. Sometimes the person who is closest to you emotionally in your life is not always the right person to be your primary agent. Because if you're in a situation where you're in a healthcare crisis and are so sick that you can't speak for yourself, sometimes the closest person to you emotionally is also in a very difficult position. And if they're so emotionally connected to you that it's going to be hard for them to make an objective decision about your care, they may not be the best person to be your primary agent. Maybe your closest person is your secondary agent, and a good friend who's a little more objective and not quite as emotionally attached to you might be the better person to be your primary agent. When you choose your agents, you have to be able to have conversations with them about your values in life and what's important to you if you were seriously ill and couldn't make decisions for yourself. And you have to trust that they will follow your wishes when the time comes. What if I do not have anyone to be my agent for healthcare? Many people say to me that they don't have anyone who they feel comfortable naming as their agent or decision maker for healthcare decisions. The truth is, you can still complete an advance directive for healthcare and state your wishes without having an agent who will speak for you. It's not ideal, but it's still better to have something in writing than to not have anything. But if you really don't have anyone to be your agent, as long as your doctors and your healthcare team understand what your wishes would be, and you put those wishes in writing, that would be enough. What can I write in my directive? In your advance directive for healthcare, you can make it really simple, or you can make it as detailed as you wish. The basic things that you're writing in your advance directive are who you name as your agents or decision makers, and what your main decisions are in terms of if you would want to be on what we call life support, on machines that would keep you alive if your body was failing. But you can also write really any kind of details about what is really important to you in terms of how you want to be cared for if you had a serious illness or were at the end of your life. You can include details about the ideal of where you would like to be at the end of life, if you would like to be in your home, if being in a hospital feels like the safest place for you, if you would prefer to be in some kind of facility where you knew that there were going to be nurses and people to take care of you. Decisions about life support, which we used to think of only as being on a ventilator, a machine that breathes for you. Those decisions are more complicated these days because you can also make decisions about whether or not you want artificial feeding and fluids, about whether you would want IV antibiotics, whether you would want to be on dialysis if your kidneys were failing. All of these things are part of what we consider life support in healthcare. There is a tool that people use to help them understand what's important, and it's called Go Wish. And it's a card deck that states a wish of some sort on the back of each card. And you go through the deck, and ideally with your family or friends or the people who are going to be your decision makers, and you kind of make piles of the cards of what's important to you and what's not so important to you. And then you go back and you look at the pile of things that are really important to you, and you can use that to help advise the kinds of things that you might add to your advance directive that are really important to you, but that people wouldn't know if you didn't tell them about it. It's a great tool. You can get it online. It's just called Go Wish Cards, and it really helps people think about what informs decisions about how you want to be treated at the end of your life. It's important for people to understand the values of how you've lived your life and how those values affect how you want to be treated at the end of your life. What do I do with the forms once they are completed? So once you have completed your advance directive for healthcare, you make copies of it, as many copies as you would like. Truly, your doctor or doctors should have a copy. The healthcare system that you relate to should have a copy, and ideally make sure that it is scanned into your electronic medical record so that it's always accessible to the healthcare team. Your decision makers or agents should absolutely have a copy of your directive. You should keep a copy in an obvious place in your house where if someone needed to grab it, they could find it easily. It's not the kind of thing that you hide away in a safety deposit box. And truly, anyone who is a close person in your life who you think would be supporting you at a time when there was a healthcare crisis, it might be a good idea for them to have a copy and to understand what your wishes are. How do I make my form legal? An advance directive, as I said, is a legal document. The way you make it a legal document is either you have it notarized by a notary and you show them your driver's license and you sign it in front of them and it becomes a legal document. The other way to make it a legal document is to have any two people witness you signing the document. Ideally, they too should look at your identification. What they are witnessing is that you are who you say you are. And it could be two neighbors. It could be two friends. It just cannot be anyone who is named in your document or anyone who is part of the healthcare system. Can I change my mind once I've written down my wishes? You can absolutely change your mind and change everything that you've written in an advance directive for healthcare at any time. The legal document is the most recently dated document. So if you wrote something 10 years ago and then you wrote something yesterday, yesterday's document becomes the legal document. It's really important, however, to review what you've written on a regular basis. I typically tell people that if you're under 50 and you're healthy, it's fine to review it every 5 years. If you're over 50 or if you have a serious health condition, probably reviewing it every year or so is an important thing to do. Pick a date. Maybe it's around your birthday or around New Year's or some time of the year that you can sit down with your decision makers, with your loved ones, and go over the things that you've written. Oftentimes, as we age, or if we get a diagnosis of an illness, our ideas about what we want change, and our paperwork needs to reflect those changes. Once you've decided to make a change in your document, you can just rip up the old ones, shred them, however you get rid of them, and write a new one. But then once again, that new one has to be notarized or witnessed, copies made, and the new directive brought to your healthcare system. That's a really important part. What if something happens and I have not completed an advance directive for healthcare? If you have not completed an advance directive for healthcare and you end up in the hospital in an emergency situation and you can't speak for yourself, typically the healthcare team will make decisions that they feel are appropriate to your care. If you have family members or close friends who do have a sense of what your wishes would be, ideally they will also show up at the hospital and speak with the healthcare team. And if the healthcare team feels that the people who are speaking for you truly know you and truly understand your wishes, they will work with them to make sure that they do what you would have wanted. But again, without having your wishes in writing, it's never completely clear to the healthcare team because they don't know you. And if you feel like you have strong feelings about what you would or would not want done, it's really important to put those wishes in writing now. Is there a benefit to having completed a form even if I never use it? Once you've completed your advance directive, you can feel a huge relief that your wishes are in writing. You have people who know what you would want in case of an emergency. And if you never need that paperwork because you never have that emergency, that's really not a problem. But it is so important if something happens that you do have something in writing. So it's worth taking the time now to complete this paperwork and have these conversations, even though they're hard to do. Who can help me with this process? There are many ways to get assistance with doing an advance directive for healthcare, although it's also absolutely fine to do it on your own. Oftentimes you can get help from social workers, from people in the medical office that you see. Here at UCSF, we have regular advanced care planning workshops every month through the Cancer Center, but open to anyone. And it's a 2-part series that anyone can come to help get assistance with completing an advance directive for healthcare. You can also go online to prepareforyourcare.org, which is a website developed by Dr. Rebecca Sidori at UCSF that has videos and online documents that you can fill out right there that walk people through the process, helping answer questions, and again, with videos that might help you understand better why it's important to complete an advance directive. Oftentimes people go to lawyers to have their advanced care planning done along with their other wills and trusts and power of attorney for finance. That's an option as well. I really suggest, however, looking at the Prepare for Your Care website or coming to a workshop where you can get your questions answered. Why do we do advanced care planning and create these documents? We do advanced care planning and write down our wishes as a gift to our loved ones. Having your decisions, your wishes in place means that if there is a healthcare crisis, the people who care about you the most aren't wondering what to do next. They've had conversations with you. They've seen your wishes in writing. And now they can follow your wishes because you have clearly told them what you want. It's an incredible gift to families to be able to understand these things ahead of a crisis so that there aren't questions and chaos and confusion at a very difficult time in one's life. Please complete your advance directive for healthcare when you're healthy, when you're able to think about these questions, and when you understand that doing this now is a gift to everyone who cares about you.